All right, Marina, hello. It is so good to meet you and have you on for today's podcast episode. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much again for having me. Excited to share some helpful information.
Oh my goodness, I know it. I am excited to learn about trademarks and to just share with the audience for today's podcast and live that we're doing today right now. So I want to go ahead and get started and introduce myself and introduce you to the audience. So guys, welcome to the Fit Beaute Report Podcast. I'm your host, Christina. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about NFT, trademarks, branding, and also legal in Web3. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Marina Banks is a trademark attorney, and she is going to be spilling some great gems for us today. So I'm excited to have you on the show. Marina, thank you so much for joining. So Marina, tell me a little bit how did you get into, well, first of all, you're a trademark attorney, and how did you become a woman in legal?
Yeah, so I've always been told since I was younger that I was going to be an attorney. And so naturally, when I went to undergrad, I was focused on a path that would lead me to law school. In between undergrad, I was like, I'm not going to law school. This is not for me. They let us talk to some law students. And I guess it was finals time for them. So they were all miserable. And I literally thought that law school was the most horrible thing. I was like, I'm not going anymore. But everything that I tried to do led back to law school. And so once I finished undergrad, I went ahead and attended law school at Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas. And when I finished, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I started out as an assistant city attorney for the city of Houston, where I got to review contracts, draft ordinances for city council, review kind of just negotiations and things of that nature. And I was like, I kind of really like this, but I wanted to be more hands-on with people, because working at a government level, you're helping, but you're helping more of a broader atmosphere. And so I ended up leaving the city and starting my own law firm, where I get to help individuals who are business owners or entrepreneurs pretty much learn how to legally structure their business, teach them about the types of contracts that can be helpful to protect them, and then also get their brand protected through trademarks and through copyrights.
Yes, that's awesome. So good. So now that we're moving away from Web 2, which everybody is very familiar with Web 2. It's social medias, it's the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, and branding blew up, small businesses blew up, trademarks blew up, right? So let's start there with Web 2 so that people can understand the difference between Web 2 and Web 3. So Web 2, brands have been just blowing up all over Instagram, social media. I mean, some brands were birthed through Web 2, through Instagram and social media. What have you seen how brand owners are taking their brands, protecting their brands, and what are some tips on Web 2 to protect your brand?
So I would say this: number one, you're never too early to start the trademark process. You can be too late though. So you're never too early to start the trademark process. And what I mean by that is this: as you said, businesses have been birthed through social media. So imagine starting your business. You're like, okay, well, I only have about 500 followers. Kind of want to see where this is going to go. But you have people who are constantly checking through social media to see what kind of business ideas they can find. Another piece besides Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook would be, why did I just lose it? But it's the one where people would call in. You can't see faces, but you call in to talk, and they would have different rooms where you chat about different topics. Clubhouse. Okay.
Yeah.
So people were pitching stuff all the time in Clubhouse, right? And so you have these people who are pretty much I like to call them small businesses or entrepreneurs just trying to get their footing or their grounding, and you're putting this information out there. Well, at the same time, you may think that you're just small right now, but someone else who has the means and the resources is pretty much looking for small individuals like you. Take your idea, have the money to protect it and expand it, and then pretty much like run with it, right?
Yeah.
So what I've seen happen is that businesses who they thought, oh, well, I'm just small right now, ended up going viral. And then they waited until it was too late to try to get the trademark in place. Or they're like, now I'm having to take steps back and get my business properly structured with the state and take different steps to protect what it is that I'm putting out there and hope that no one else has already trademarked it if they haven't already. So I would say that's the biggest thing. Is that people are realizing a little bit too late that they need to actually take some steps for protection because things happen so fast. Like you could just have 500 followers today, you post something and end up with like 20,000 tomorrow. And that's what's happening a lot. So that's the biggest thing I would say with people who are kind of birthing these businesses through social media, in addition to those that had businesses. But social media has kind of rocketed their businesses, right, as far as growth, because they're able to reach so many people in a short amount of time.
Have you seen any businesses or have there been any instances that you worked with any businesses who have, gotten their brand stolen or an image stolen, reproduced, because that's what trademarks protecting from someone who would want to steal a product or a product name and things, or a service that you, not necessarily a service, right? But it would be an item or an image or a photo of something. So have you seen in instances and cases where people have actually stolen and recreated it to create a business off of what someone has already made?
Yeah, so actually this was, I think 2 weeks ago, I was speaking with one of my clients. And luckily this client already went through the trademark process. They've gained quite a big following locally in the geographic area they're in. They're very well known. And then social media is like expanding. Like they have probably like 64,000 followers through Instagram, and people are always visiting their location. And so let's say they sell shoes, for instance, right? That's what they do. They sell shoes. Well, this other individual decided that they were going to start a shoe review like company or business with the exact same name. And pretty much now my client doesn't sell shoes. I'm using this as an example, right? They offer a specific product and someone else started a business trying to review these types of products. And my client reached out, was like, hey, I actually have this name trademark. You're not going to be able to use it. And the person responded was like, oh, well, your trademark doesn't apply to this. Well, trademark law says that you can trademark the name or the logo as it applies to the exact services or products that you offer, as well as anything similar. So if I am Nike, I'm well known for selling shoes, right? And then Christina decides she's going to start a podcast called Nike, and they're just going to review tennis shoes. Don't you think that people would think those two were related because the product is directly related to the service? And so we politely sent a cease and desist, and the client, not the client, but the individual still believed that they weren't in the wrong. And when you have a trademark or a copyright, you can actually contact the legal services of TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. So the client, not the client, but the other person didn't want to take it down. So I just contacted the legal department at Instagram and let them know, hey, here's the proof of my client's trademark. This is what this person is doing. And they instantly took the page down. So, one step is getting it protected, but the other step is enforcing those rights.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. If we don't enforce them, then people are just going to continue to try to do whatever they want, get away with it. People want to get away with so many things. And when you see someone else who's actually put in blood, sweat, and tears to build a business and build a brand out of their own, God-given, idea, it's really hard to just not want to protect it. It's in our best interest to protect it, right? Otherwise, we can have these kind of issues, we can have these kind of problems, and then, it can supersede into something bigger than this and, lose out on a lot of money. But then the lawsuit would come in place, right? If it were to go any further, have there been any instances where you've had to go into actually, going into a lawsuit for something on a trademark?
I don't handle the lawsuit part, but typically you're able to get people to stop doing something through a cease and desist letter. So the cease and desist letter pretty much has like my law firm title on it, or whatever law firm you hire. It lets them know, hey, this trademark is actually registered with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Here's the registration number. It lets them know the law that pretty much surrounds someone infringing on a trademark owner's rights and what kind of lawsuit could be filed against them. We also let them know possible damages that they could be liable for if they don't stop using it. Typically, we're able to get people to stop utilizing the name or the logo with the cease and desist letter, but in very rare occasions, things actually go to court. I know from TV and things, it makes it seem like, oh, well, everything just goes to court, but the reality is that a lot of things actually get settled before you're actually, going to court.
And what is the difference between a copyright and a trademark when it pertains to our brand?
Yeah, so a copyright is going to be used to protect anything creative in nature, right? So copyright starts with C, creative starts with C. So anything that's creative in nature, such as a digital image, a video that someone prepares or edits, lyrics to a song, right? In addition to the audio recording of the song, because sometimes songwriters are hired, to write lyrics for a song. They can become the copyright owner of the lyrics while the production company is actually the owner of the full audio together. And so the copyright is really meant to protect something that someone is creating. They're using their intellect to create this item. Whereas the trademark is really meant to just protect your brand. So the name, the logo, the slogan that people hear and directly relate to the product or service you offer. And so an example of this is Nike, right? So when I see a commercial, it says just do it. And I see athletes like running, slow motion, and blood and sweat is like coming down and they're still going. I don't have to even see the name Nike to know that this is a Nike commercial, because I already saw just do it. The athletes, right? That ties into the athletic attire and things that Nike is known for. That's your brand. What people see or hear and directly relate to the products or services that you offer. Whereas the copyright is trying to protect something that you have created. And this could also include designs, right? So not the actual shoe product, but you could actually copyright like the designs of the markup of the clothing or the drawing of the shoe.
Okay, and how about with publishers? Is it the same thing like with a book or a curriculum that's created?
So a lot of people are selling e-courses. Maybe someone's like, hey, I'm like really thriving with NFTs right now. I'm going to do an e-course on how you can start to make monies, with NFTs. The e-course itself can be copywritten. So each of those slides that you're putting together, typically when you purchase someone's e-course, you may have like different modules. You can trademark all the documents that are in the modules that you have created. Maybe you have video recordings as part of each module, right? So modules 1 through 10, I have 10 videos. You can copyright each of the videos. And this will protect you in certain instances where I've seen this happen in social media, where someone was speaking out in outrage and like, please try to report this page because this lady purchased my course and then resold it. And I happen to have someone who took my course and then paid for her course and realized it was the exact same material and she's just reselling it. Well, then it goes back, okay, did you copyright your information? And most of the time people have to say no, they didn't. Now the thing is that the law will still protect you, right? They say, go ahead and submit the application, but you would then have to file a lawsuit claiming that you were the originator. You have to show proof that you would have had it first, or you could just save time and money, already copyright your information, have your attorney send a cease and desist letter as soon as you find out about it. And you have more of a stronger standing when you go into that lawsuit. You could still try to sue someone without having registered your copyright, but your case is just so much stronger if you already have the copyright registered.
So does that eliminate an NDA from having to do a whole NDA when you have someone who is going to be obtaining, like let's say that course creator has an assistant and the assistant is helping assist with it. Instead of giving her an NDA, you can just go ahead, get it copyrighted already and have to not even worry about an NDA, having her sign an NDA, or anyone who comes in contact with your training that you got to train others who are helping you with the education part, what does that eliminate an NDA from having to do any of that, as long as it's just copywritten?
I'm always going to advocate for the most protection, so I'm going to say no. For those of you who don't know what NDA stands for a non-disclosure agreement. And pretty much you have people sign this who are coming into contact with critical or important information about what it is that you're doing. So as Christina mentioned, maybe you had an educator who was kind of just helping you to scope this together and then make it into this full-blown course. Maybe you had a virtual assistant or in-person assistant who was kind of just helping to make sure you're staying on top of deadlines, proofreading, but they're coming in contact to everything that's in your course. You could have them sign a non-disclosure agreement to say that at the end of the day, they will not disclose any of the information that they have come across that is critical or that is unique in nature to this project that you're producing. That they understand that if they disclose this information, your business or your project could be financially damaged or harmed, or your reputation could be harmed. I would still say to have them sign a non-disclosure agreement. Why? If you have this copyright, you can sue them if they try to do something with it, because the more protection, the better. Just because I wear a seatbelt in my car doesn't mean that I don't get insurance, right? I'm gonna wear my seatbelt, I'm gonna get insurance, I'm gonna pay attention while driving and stop at the stoplights and stop signs, because ultimately I want the most protection possible, right? I want to have things in place in case something does go wrong, but I'm still going to take every step in my power to be a safe driver. So the same thing goes when you have some sort of material that you're creating. Yes, you have different pieces. You have a copyright in place to protect it. You have an individual sign a non-disclosure agreement who come in contact. It may seem like a lot, but if anything is to go wrong, you already have all the protection in place. All you have to do is apply them, and it makes things so much easier for you as a business owner, because the other side is that business owners come to me when they didn't have anything in place, and now we're trying to figure out how we can claim some sort of protection when they never had anyone sign a contract. They had a graphic designer do all of these nice backgrounds and layouts for the e-course, but didn't have them sign a work for hire contract. And now they're getting upset because the graphic designer is posting examples of their work and they're using clips from their e-course, right? And so if you would have just had these individuals sign a non-disclosure agreement, you wouldn't have to worry about this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now that we established a little bit more about Web2, how trademarks, copyrights are utilized, I want to move into Web3. And moving into Web3, we all know that crypto art has, really blown up on Web3. It's mainly one of the biggest digital assets that you can purchase right now on Web3 and on the blockchain. And we have seen how many artists, graphic designs, photographers, very creative designs, 3D art, right? All the art that's being created and placed on the blockchain to be sold for ETH or sold for crypto. And how there's IPs. So now on this crypto art that you have, there's IPs that are being distributed, like Yuga Labs designed Bored Ape Yacht Club's designs for their NFTs, which is Bored Ape Yacht Clubs, which is one of the leaders, blue chips in the NFT space. And they allowed for all their NFT holders to have IP rights. So from that perspective, how does someone protect what you're going to build? So I have a friend who has a Bored Ape, and her and her boyfriend have a Bored Ape, and they created, she has a beauty background. She created, she's a creative director. So she has manufacturer relationships for beauty brands. So they launched a beauty brand utilizing the brand of the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And they came out with hair products, candles, because the Bored Ape Yacht Club allowed them to use their IP. How do you protect the IP when it comes to now that NFTs are allowing you to utilize their IP when you buy their NFT to create another brand that you're creating?
So it's going to come down to what it is that they're having you agree to. Like, I've never purchased from them, but I am quite certain, because I had someone else ask me this question, that when you purchase, they're giving you some sort of terms and conditions, or you're agreeing to some sort of terms and conditions. The easiest way that I can relate this to is I shop in Ross and Marshalls way more than I need to. I'm not signing any contract when I purchase these products, but I do get a receipt when I finish purchasing them. When I flip over that receipt, there are terms and conditions stated that I must abide by if I want a refund, if I want my money back, things like that. I've never purchased from Bored Ape. However, I'm assuming that when you purchase, you're either agreeing to abide by their terms and conditions, or you actually are like signing they have you sign some sort of agreement. Reason is that you're using their brand, right? They've already built, one, I would say, credibility in this area or in this industry. And so you're able to pretty much capitalize off of what they've already grown. And then you're trying to start something new under that. So they're not going to let you just use their brand for free, right? And so I'm not sure what the terms and conditions state, but I'm quite certain that you're like, by purchasing, you automatically agree, or they're letting you know ahead of time, here's what you need to abide by, by taking this route. Now, if we want to break down, maybe I don't want to go through Bored Ape. However, I want to break into this atmosphere somehow, but I want to start my own company and do it. So if we look at this structure, right? Bored Ape itself is probably incorporated in some state. A lot of tech companies, and you've probably talked about this on another episode, they decide to incorporate in the state of Delaware, right? You'll see a lot of tech companies start there. And so when you think that you're going to start your own company in this area, we need to start with first registering for business with a certain state. So like I said, a lot of tech companies are going to register in the state of Delaware. The second thing is that they now have this brand. You mentioned you're using their IP, right? So we have this brand. We've already talked about the fact that trademarks protect a brand. So when you look up on the United States Patent and Trademark Office database, you'll see that they have a trademark for their name as it applies to this specific industry. So that's another thing you want to do. You want to trademark your brand name as it applies to this industry. The next thing that we come to are copyrights. How do copyrights fall into this atmosphere? So this is going to go into if you're actually creating, right? If you are the one that you're the individual that is taking time to manually create these, then you can talk about copyrights in that aspect. But, and I don't have the correct terminology, so please don't get upset. You also have individuals who are kind of just having the websites like create the images, automatically or something like that by constructing. I'm not sure how it works, right? I do the legal side, but if the website itself is building the image, you're not the original creator of it. So we're not going to take time to copyright it. But when you actually took the time to put this together, then that's when we look at the copyright. The next piece of protection that we come to are contracts. So like I said, if you're going to be working with Bored Ape, they're either going to say that by purchasing, you're agreeing to our terms and conditions, or they actually have you e-sign some sort of contract. So if you're going the route of you're going to have your own business, you need to think about what route you want people to take. Are you granting people a piece of intellectual property ownership in what you built? That is handled with a contract, right? Because it's going to outline the terms and conditions. How much ownership do you have? What kind of rights do you have to use this? Can you sell your ownership rights, or can you be the only owner? If you do decide that you want to transfer rights, do you have to notify them? Things of this nature. So there are quite a few steps to take, but the first would start with, like I said, figuring out the state that you're going to incorporate in. Most tech companies go with Delaware and register it with the state. Second is to protect the brand that you're using. So if you're using a logo or a name, and I've done this for other clients, is that we protect the name they're going to use to sell their NFTs, as well as the main logo that they're going to sell under. They sell through OpenSea. And so on OpenSea, you can have a little icon. And so they'll trademark that main logo and then trademark the name as well, because they're looking future wise, right? Yes, we're starting here, but our goal is to be so much bigger than this. So they're trademarking the name and the logo that they're selling under, so that when people see this logo, they're directly relating it to this business that sells these NFTs. And then the next piece is going to say, okay, did I actually create these images myself and take the time? Then we can think about copyright, but you're not going to deal with it too much, quite honestly, if you're mass producing NFTs. And then the next piece is intellectual property ownership with contracts. That was a lot, but these are just some pieces for you to kind of think about jot down, think about in order, and then figure out through YouTube University, through sitting down and talking with the actual legal profession, how does this apply to my business and what stage do I need to worry about each of these items? Because you don't have to do everything at one time. You can
Yeah.
break it down and set goals.
That's so good. I think that that's part of Web3 is a smart contract, right? And that's where Yuga Labs and Bored Ape Yacht Club included all those terms in the actual smart contract. So smart contract has all those terms listed, and that's really interesting that you're like ownership, like how much ownership do you get of this, right? And so it's listed in there how much ownership they get. They get 100% ownership of this actual Bored Ape that they're purchasing the NFT, but if they ever sell their NFT and they created a sub brand from that NFT, they lose that sub brand and they lose everything with it. And the new owner becomes whoever you sell it. So you can sub sell a business underneath this NFT that others have built a brand on and sell that sub business to another NFT owner once you transfer over the NFT and those rights, those IP rights, you're basically selling those IP rights with that new NFT through that smart contract. Because in that smart contract, when Yuga and Bored Ape Yacht Club had already originally created it, that is the sole reason how an NFT creates passive income. So it's sold to the next seller if that sub brand sells, if it takes off, if it is successful.
And I think that that's important to think about when you're thinking about the structure of your business, right? Do you want to create it on its own or be a part of this? So there's so much to think about. I think when it comes to, as a business owner, what are the steps that I want to take? But it's also important to realize that there are legal consequences that come with each decision that you make. And so unlike Christina, there are going to be some individuals who don't fully understand or don't fully read what is in the contract. And so they're going to take a next step and a next step and then find themselves realizing that they're not properly owning everything that they thought they were creating. And you're not able to make as much money as you could have if you read the contracts, understand the contracts, and then make a systematic step that's going to be beneficial for you.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I feel like sometimes some people will take the smart contract and still interpret it into their own way, but it's like, no, like it's here, it's listed, like you can't miss it. But like you said, it's always better to protect and double protect with an NDA. If you are building the business, you are working with independent contractors, you are working without other people to help you build it. While you may have the vision and the dream, you still should protect that, because you just never know who's going to be around, what you're building, what you're trying to, what your vision is, and for others to just come alongside you. Some will stay, some won't, but at least you have that protection in place so that if anything ever happens, like, for certain, like that cease and desist letter will just get sent to them automatically.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so true. I feel like also too, I wanted to touch on one last thing. The rights to these images, what we're starting to see now also too in Web3 is OpenSea and NFTs. I think that this is also a Web2 thing, where Web2 was not catching a lot of in their algorithms, they weren't catching, let's just say, bad press, bad stuff, or just bad things. So now what we're starting to see in Web3 is in NFTs, on the NFT marketplace, there's starting to be a lot of fakes. So what we're starting to see now is a lot of these projects, individual projects who are seeing success, others are coming in, taking that exact same image, making it, and then uploading it like they're the real brand or the real company, and they're not. And they're being sold. But as a consumer and someone who doesn't know about NFTs, you're just looking for the name, and you're only recognizing the name. They're doing so good of a job that the only thing they change is, like, let's say, like, wow, Women of Wonder. It's a big women-led project, NFT project in the space, and you'll see another brand or another person who's copying them, but their logo is WOW, and they'll go in and put WOW dot. And so as a consumer, you really don't realize what you're clicking because you're just seeing the WOW because that's so recognizable. That's what you're looking for. So you just click on the first one you see all of their images. So this must be it. And then people are purchasing them, not realizing that that's not real. It's not the real thing.
And so this goes back when we talked about trademarks being something that's protecting your brand. And so this example that Christina gave is that people don't always know the exact name or don't know what to exactly look for. They kind of just know this main idea. And that's when you want to enforce your trademark rights, right? You want to get an attorney on board, send them a cease and desist letter. And if they're not stopping, then go ahead and file a lawsuit. Because in this instance, the main owner, right, of this brand could be reputably damaged because someone is saying, well, this is not having the value that I thought it would have. And then they're not even relating it back to the infringer, right? The person who was like making these false products, they're relating it back to the main company. And that main company is the one that is suffering. So when you see these big lawsuits, the one, for example, I believe Hermes is the brand that actually makes the Birkin bag. And there was this whole big lawsuit about, selling these images of the Birkin bag within the metaverse. However, that company had nothing to do with it. Hermes had nothing to do with it. And it goes back to this brand protection. We don't want you trying to diminish this brand that we have spent time, money, blood, sweat, and tears building, right? And people are not going to understand that we're not the owners of that. They're going to see this bag that looks exactly like our actual bags in person do and think that we're the owners of it. Because when we look at Nike and Adidas, they're already selling, they already have their, I won't say selling, but they already have their trademarks registered to be used in the metaverse and have already put out images of what their products will look like. So if a big brand like that is doing it, we would assume that, the owner of the Birkin brand is actually the owner of this image in the metaverse, and they're not. So when we talk about trademarks, it's really so important to separate the business from the brand part. But to understand that it's important to also protect your brand and not just your business, because you don't want this to happen. You do not want the brand reputation to be diminished, because then you're losing credibility, you're losing trust from your consumers, and you're losing money.
Yeah, that's absolutely so true. And it's crazy to see it because Web3 was definitely, I don't think the Web3 community was expecting that, because everyone was just really focused on the whole NFTs. It's a one of a kind. It's a one-on-one. It's an original. It can't be copyright. It can't be copied. You can't purchase a fake. And then all of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute. No, it can be even. And they are just basically making a different platform, opening up an account, taking their images, and just acting as if they're the real brand, and then just taking people's ETH, and these people are not even purchasing the real thing. Mm-hmm. And so, and so I feel like we're going to begin seeing more lawsuits also too, and more, trademarks and copyrights in your brand. If you want to upload anything, I think that you should go ahead and trademark your name of whatever art or project you are creating. If you're deciding you're going to be a community and you're going to be a collection and you're going to be an actual, project leader in this space, you should definitely get that trademark, that name, in case someone does see your idea, wants to run with it, and wants to do what's happening right now that's happening.
Yeah. And I think that piece is super important. Like I said, I've worked with individuals who are just wanting to protect the main logo and name that they're using to sell, because they're already thinking this is the brand that people are going to relate to, these images, and we want them to know it's us and not someone else. So in this instance, that name would be trademarked, right? So that no one else could be able to use it. And if anyone tries to use something similar, even if they add a period or they add a sub number 2, people will still directly relate it to the main owner. And that's where trademark comes in place. You don't just have protection over the exact name that you're protecting. Anything that is too similar, you can file a trademark lawsuit against them, because it's still going to confuse people. And that's what a trademark is trying to prevent. It's trying to protect your brand so that someone else cannot capitalize off of what you have built and then do something wrong that diminishes your reputation or diminishes the trust of your brand.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I feel another thing about Web3 in the fashion space, like you said, you could trademark or copyright your designs, copyright anything like the outlines of your shoes or the outlines of any type of clothing that you're making. On Web3, it's also taking it a step further, and it's allowing us to see the actual manufacturing steps of authenticity of an actual piece of clothing, of an actual piece of a shoe or a purse. And so you would receive like an authentication code from the blockchain saying like this is this is an original, because it can't be, it can't be a fake. And so I'm very looking forward to that actually developing in the next, I'm sure 5 to 8 months. Fashion and beauty lead Web3. They just lead technology in general. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how that actually develops in the whole trademarks, in the whole copywritten, side as well. Just because like it is a huge issue with fashion brands and knockoffs, and seeing how they lose millions of dollars with all the fakes, and it's people will buy thinking that it's the real thing, and it's just not.
Yeah. And so like I think that these are great examples so that people can kind of relate. Oh, okay. So when we talk about a brand and a trademark, this is how it actually plays out in real life. Because yeah, I would be upset if I spent $5,000 on a handbag thinking it was Chanel and it really wasn't made by Chanel, right? Now, when you talk about the manufacturing, right? So, and it's crazy that all these things are just relating back to different ways to protect intellectual property. But when we talk about manufacturing, that's where patents come into place. So we've talked about trademarks, we've talked about copyrights. I'm going to tell you now, I don't practice in the patent area, but I just want to tell you what a patent is meant to protect, because each of these things that we're discussing, you're going to be able to protect it with the law in some way. So a patent is really meant to protect basically like the manufacturing process of something. So if we think about a toaster oven, right, the one that you put on your counter, you plug it in, but it opens like an actual oven and you can lay your toast flat on there, right? Someone has patented how they created this, like the steps behind it. So how do we piece things together? How the mechanics work inside of the toaster to actually make it work? These are protected by patents. And so although you have the NFT, and this is what we talked about, I was like, some brands are actually copyrighting each image and some aren't. They're just making sure that they trademark the actual brand that they're selling it under. I think that it's going to move that way as well with the manufacturing NFT that you're talking about. In addition, some people may also patent that process of how it's made, if it is something that can be patented, because not all processes can be patented. If they're too widely used, then you can't patent them. But if it's really something unique that you created, you can patent it. For example, something that has been patented is the water gun called the Super Soaker, right? So it's different from just a regular water gun that you shoot with your hand. You're able to pull this lever back to make the water shoot out and go further. Someone has patented just the makeup of that, right? So when we talk about protecting now this system of how you manufacture something, that's going to be protected with a patent. Your brand, the brand that you're selling this name or selling the products under, so this logo, this name, or the slogan related to that, that's going to be your trademark. And then these creative images, lyrics, words, videos, things of that nature, audio recordings, that's going to be with a copyright because someone is actually creating those.
Anything written, anything we write, any type of book, anything that is a training manual, all of that is to be copywritten, right?
Yeah.
And that's really neat. How also too, I wanted to touch on how these copyrights are, many people just don't even do it just because they think that, nobody is going to take their work from them or nobody's going to steal it, right? And then but people are like, wait, you spent all this time creating this, you spent all this time, and it is time, like it's time consuming projects, creative projects take time, and it's best if you protect it without, and that way you don't have to worry about others, coming in to take what you basically worked and put so much time into trying to build. And I definitely believe that trademarks and patents and copyright rights are not spoken about enough in the creative space. But they really do need to, so that people can really understand why we need these. What is like a creative needs to protect themselves. A creative is always just, wanting to sell their art or be, a unicorn, but there's things that unicorns should protect, so that way it's not going to, hurt you in the long run if you are building a business. So trademarks, patents, and copyrights, you should get that as soon as possible. And Marina Banks can help you do that. Not the patent side, because she does only trademarks and copyrights, but she does do, she is the legal queen on social media. So Marina, tell everyone where they can find you on social.
Yeah, so you can find me on TikTok and on Instagram at Bank Solutions. That's the name of my actual business. And this is just an example of the different things you can trademark, right? You trademark your actual business name. You can trademark a trade name that you may go by. So through social media, I go by the Legal Queen. People will see my videos and things and related to that name. And then I also can protect my business name, right? So you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Bank Solutions, BANKS Solutions. And then I also am on YouTube and Facebook at Bank Solutions.
All right, guys. Well, you heard it here from the legal queen herself. I hope we brought you some value and you guys got to listen in and be able to protect yourself, learn some new information about what's going on in Web3, how Web2 has evolved from trademarks, copyrights, and how we're evolving into Web3, how IP rights are being used. So if you guys want to connect with me on social, the Fit Beaute Report on Facebook, Instagram, and all through social media. Once again, guys, thank you so much for lending me your ears and tuning in to today's episode. Peace and love as always. Goodbye.